Hello friends, it's Kayla. Good to see you. Wish it was under better circumstances that we were hanging out today, but in fact we have to confront me from a year ago about her 5-star predictions for 2025. I think most of them are wrong. About a month ago, I scrubbed through this like on mute, so I don't know what I said, but I wanted to make sure that I had actually read all of the books, and I think there was 2 that I had to finish. I can't remember what all of them are in this moment, but I vaguely remember what I chose. And let's see if any of my 5-star predictions were in fact 5 stars. Hello friends, I'm Kayla. I just got back from 4 days at a cottage on the lake with a bunch of girlfriends. Oh my god, I get to go back to that cottage. Actually, we're going to a different place for my girls' trip this year, but I will be going away very soon for a little trip. I was like, I'm supposed to get a Wednesday video up, but I don't have any ideas. Right, I wasn't supposed to do this video ever again because I so deeply failed my last 5-star prediction situation. And in fact, I have also failed my 5-star predictions this year. I did 2 videos where I was reading horror books and I predicted every rating from 1 to 5 stars for 5 books. And both times I did the video and I predicted a 5-star rating, I didn't end up with a 5-star. I am, unfortunately, having another allergic reaction. Right, I used a certain skincare that nothing works on my skin. I have something I use now though, and I'm scared they're gonna go out of business. Against my better judgment, I'm gonna do a little 5-star prediction. I told myself years ago I wasn't gonna do this again because I did a 5-star prediction video and then made an entire series out of it, and I didn't end up with a single 5-star by the end. It was a year-long series. It'll give me a piece of content to react to at the end of the year, and hopefully, Kayla from the future, half of these you're correct about, or you're never allowed to do this again, okay? Okay, I didn't realize I put laws in place. Good God. Number 1 is Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaughey. Reason number 1, it's an author that I've read from before, read twice before, and I've given 4.5 or 5 stars to both of those. She does family dynamics, she does like inner turmoil of characters, and also there's a little mystery moving the plot along, not so much so that it doesn't feel like literary fiction, just a little something. And this one has more of a mystery than the other 2 from what I understand. Also, I love books set on islands, and this is set on an island. It follows a mysterious woman who washes ashore at this island. So the mystery is, who is she? Where did she come from? Beyond this woman washing up is the isolation and how it started to impact this family. So we're following an 18-year-old guy and his 17-year-old sister, 9-year-old boy who loves nature. And then Dominic, the dad, lost his wife. And then this woman, they nurse her back to health. But the question is, how did she get there? And then she discovers things about Dominic, the dad, like secrets that he might have. Okay, you might be thinking it's a little bit, if you already watched this video, maybe it's a little bit boring to watch the entire thing back, but I figured let's watch her pitch the book so I don't have to do it, and I can just give you my general thoughts on if it was 5 stars, because her synopsis was completely accurate. And I did give this 5 stars. It's one of only a handful of books that have ever made me cry. I think Charlotte McConaughey gets better and better, and she is willing to push the envelope more and more. I think in both of her past books that I read, there was an element at the end where I thought this could have gone a little bit further, or there could have been a darker thing happening, or there could have been something twisty. And I know that that's not necessary in literary fiction, but I'm always looking for something like that that is more in the mystery thriller realm. And I don't think this is more of a thriller, but it's definitely more of a mystery. There are more things that you're wondering about. You are wondering who this woman is, why she's there. The family's wondering who she is. She's wondering if they did something. And I think what she builds to and the ending we actually get is really bold, and I just sobbed throughout the second half of this book. There's just so many, they're not reveals like, oh my god, thriller reveals, but there's just little moments between all of these characters and the relationships that they build and coming to understand certain things about each other that are really heartbreaking. It is one of my favorite books of the year, and I did give it a 5. So I'm pretty thrilled that this is the first one that I mentioned. Number 2, I'm going to say Adrift in Currents, Clean and Clear. This one comes out in January. It's the 10th book. I definitely forgot that this is one that I put on my list. I think I just predict these to be 5 stars all the time, even though the last chunk has been 4s. This one takes place in an underwater world, and that just sounds completely up my alley. It also is following a character we've met before.
Nadia. The Wayward Children series follows Eleanor West, and she creates this home. She supports all of these children who go to these fantasy worlds, find these portals to the places they truly belong, and then can't return. For Nadia, she wants to escape her adoptive family. They have different thoughts on things. They're not really respecting her wishes in regards to her prosthetic arm. And her underwater world has like majestic turtles and like sailing ships that sail underneath the water. There are dangerous trials she has to go through. And I just think it's going to be really special.
Maybe it's because I read this one back in January, as I always do. That's when these books come out in the series. That I haven't, like, I've forgotten most of the story. It definitely isn't the most memorable of the collection, but I did give it a 4. And I remember enjoying like the real world stuff before she ended up in the fantasy world, though the atmosphere was beautiful and I think people could love that element more. Seanan McGuire always does things really tactfully and respectfully and represents so many different communities. And I thought it was really interesting of her to talk about adoptive parents who on the surface are doing things like kindly and lovingly and taking in a child who needs something. But for some people, adoption is more of something that you want to look kind and helpful and moral and wonderful and loving. And the psychological harm that Nadia experiences because of these people who take her in and don't respect her and just expect her to be perfect and grateful all the time. It's just a really interesting topic for Seanan McGuire to touch on. So yeah, that one was a 4.
Number 3, we're gonna go with Eat the Ones You Love by Sarah Maria Griffin.
Right.
Seems to be based on Little Shop of Horrors, which is one of my favorite movies and one of the only musicals I can even stand.
Right, so just to correct her, inspired by Little Shop of Horrors for sure. In any way, a retelling, a reimagining, or even really anything in the plot that are nods to Little Shop of Horrors, no. And I really wish that there was, and I was desperately digging for some. I picked this as a Literally Dead book club pick because I was so confident that I would love it. I wanted everyone to read it with me. I thought it would be this really campy, fun, silly Little Shop of Horrors horror vibe, and it wasn't. But then it also wasn't like dark and crazy and scary, and so it just kind of towed this more fantasy line that just didn't deliver for me what I wanted. I gave this a 3.5. In this moment, like months after and reflecting, it feels more like a solid 3. Something I didn't know about the book is the majority of it, from what I remember, takes place from the plant. There's a sentient plant in here called Baby, and it's from his perspective. And I like the intent of the book, and I think it's really to highlight abusive relationships and putting these abusive traits into this plant. But hearing from you, I've said this before with multiple like thriller books, when we're from the perspective of an abusive man and we feel like we're just getting berated the entire book as if it's written to the reader, I can't stand it. It's not that I think that's a flaw in the book, but that's not a type of book that I enjoy, and I wish I had known that going in.
Basically, we have a main character named Shell. She gets a job at a flower shop, and Neve, the florist, they're falling for each other, but there is an orchid there growing out of control. I think he's trying to eat her.
Yeah, so it just wasn't as fun as I had hoped, but it led to having a movie night with my besties where we rewatched Little Shop of Horrors, or some people for the first time. I was introducing it to them, and that was fun. So it was an interesting time, not everything that I had hoped.
I think The Possession of Alba Diaz by Isabel Cañas is one that I'm going to immediately pick up upon release and believe that I'm going to love it. Again, both of her other books that I've read were 4.5 or 5 stars.
And this one was also a 4.5. I can't quite give Isabel Cañas a 5, but she is a favorite author of mine. I will continue to pick up all of her stuff. I have never known a horror author to do historical horror romance in a way that I've loved like this, and there's just so much yearning between her characters, and the horror often takes a back seat, but they're also so atmospheric at the same time. And when the horror comes into it, it is very thorough, but it's also very obvious. And you know me, and I like twists and turns, and that's not what she's doing. That's not what the books are supposed to be, but I find myself a little unsatisfied sometimes in like the middle chunk of all of her books when we're just talking about stuff, and I want to be building to something unexpected. And that's not really fair of me. And it's funny because I remember pitching this and I was a bit confused by the synopsis, and I shouldn't have been, because it is a very straightforward possession story.
It's set in 1765, and Alba flees from the plague with her parents and fiance to the family mine. And then she starts to suffer from hallucinations, sleepwalking, convulsions. And we also have another main character, Elias, who is the cousin of Alba's betrothed. And he starts to fall for her. And he's noticing that, I don't know, it says he notices the demon's thirst for blood, which, like, and what it's doing to Alba. And, like, what does that mean? If he recognizes the demon's thirst, is it his thirst? Is it her betrothed? Or is it, like, a demon in the cave? I don't know. But it says they get entangled with the occult, and there's a lot of long-kept secrets.
Yeah, I was definitely reading a little too much romantasy, and I was like, well, obviously we have this evil entity and we have this romantic interest. They're gonna be the same. Like, he's the demon. He recognizes the demon in her. But no, he's just like this really loving man. And he yearns for her. And the silver mine is actually her betrothed. And there's like fake dating or a marriage of convenience in here, which I didn't even know, where she is getting with her childhood best friend, and to have their own, get to make their own decisions, but also still follow what the family wants. They decide to get married, and she spends time at his family's silver mine where she gets to know his cousin. And in the mine, while they're just working day to day, she is possessed by a demon. And then the rest of the book is her fighting against the demonic presence. And there are some frightening moments. There's some really lovely moments between her and these men. There's some really sad stuff that happens. There's beautiful stuff. Like, it's just so dynamic and well done, and I absolutely recommend Isabel Cañas to everybody. I think everybody should just like give her a go.
Number 5. This is a recently announced one, Too Old for This by Samantha Downing.
I forgot about this one.
I find when I recommend her books to other people, it doesn't always go over well.
I think that's going to be true with this one too. I gave it a 4. I think other people will read and wish that there was some more mystery or more explanations, and I completely agree, but not so much so that I would dock more than 1 star.
This is about a retired serial killer. One of the covers looks like a cozy vibe. Sometimes I think that her book covers don't perfectly represent her stories because they are a little on the goofy side. They're not really serious thrillers. Dark things happen for sure, murder and death and intensity, but they seem to me self-aware and like a little tongue-in-cheek.
And she remained consistent because this book is that exact same tone. It's not a cozy mystery or thriller, and it's not a super dark extreme one. There are deadly things that happen. Like, there are multiple deaths in this book, but there's just this vibe to it that is the main character and the author just not taking anything too seriously. And I love that a lot.
So Lottie, decades ago, changed her identity, and she's been living like a safe, peaceful life. And an investigative journalist shows up on her doorstep asking questions about unsolved cases from the past. And now Lottie has to decide if she wants to kill this person to keep her secrets. I wonder if we're going to get insight into the murders, or if there's going to be like a good reason for the murders, or I assume there's going to be some twists and turns, as Samantha Downing usually does. A little reveal would be interesting here.
Yeah, so something that I wanted from this book was a reveal. I love twists. I love moving parts. I love when you think something, you're tricked into thinking something, and then something else is happening. This is a really straightforward thriller. Like, I wouldn't put this in a mystery category at all. It's her reminiscing on the murder she committed, and the investigative journalist that comes, she is convinced that Lottie didn't do it. And she is putting together all this evidence, and she's like, how come you got blamed for these murders? Or how come people thought of you, blah, 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 blah. I want to clear your name. And Lottie is just so scared because all of the evidence is going to point towards her. And she doesn't have a good reason for these murders. And we don't get like this really humanity exploration of like why people commit crimes. That is not what it is. We just watch Lottie as she kind of like stumbles around in a body that isn't as capable as it used to be, trying to be the same person she used to be. And I think there's a lot of metaphor there that people can take away, not in a murderous sense, but reflecting on the things that you used to be able to do and now you can no longer accomplish. Like, she used to so easily be able to lie and manipulate and murder people, but now she has to take a walker everywhere she goes and she can't do the same things. But there's also moments in the book where she makes herself look more feeble than she actually really is because she's trying to get away with murder. So we're just in her mind as she's like talking to this person who's talking to this person who's talking to this person, tricking everybody so nobody like comes back to understand what she did. But there's still a lot of violence and it's a wild ride. So I had a good time, but definitely a 4. I will continue to read this author like every year.
Then what I think would be on a lot of people's 5-star predictions is Kate Basis by R.F. Kuang. I think R.F. Kuang can do no wrong.
It didn't even have a cover this time. I don't love the cover, but I think it represents the story fine. It's so tough because the expectations of this book versus reality are a real mixed bag for people. Like some people go into it and they're like, oh, it was exactly what I expected. Like I think it's kind of exactly the vibe that I expected. But based on the pitch and the marketing and what she's done before, I think a lot of people expected a much more epic romance or a much more epic fantasy. And it's just kind of a meandering through hell story that is a little more lighthearted than you might think, especially with the heavy topics that it's covering. And also some people think it's going to be like this deeply academic critique. And there is that, but the exposition that we get is lengthy, but it's not always maybe as deep as you might think it's going to go.
It's about 2 academic rivals who must travel to hell to rescue the soul of their advisor. Like that just sounds perfect. I expect it to have a lot of lush description. It's rivals to lovers, which sounds so fun. They go to Cambridge, so I think there's going to be a lot of pretension within the pages, which I love. I want to see the cover so bad. I just want to know what it's going to look like.
I do love the green. I will say that. I think it was a 4.25. And it was really about just understanding the relationship that this professor advisor had with his students. It really did lack urgency. It felt more like a quest story where we're just bouncing between different like levels of this game almost. And I really loved the writing. Maybe the plot suffered just a little bit for me, but I just love I love being in her head. I love all the discussions that she wants to have. I think a lot of her opinions and experience are on the page for sure. And we get to decipher things as we go. But I do understand people not absolutely loving this. It was a win for me. 4 more to go. Surely there's another 5-star in here. We've gotten close a couple times.
The next one, number 7, I think is a little less informed. However, it's my favorite series of all time and the adaptation of it. So how could it not be a 5-star? I don't like graphic novels. I don't like looking at pictures. I don't like animated movies. I don't know what that says about me. A lot of people have a lot of opinions about that. I just can't imagine myself after 10 years of reading this series not just being so enthralled by seeing for the first time my favorite scenes on page.
Okay, so this obviously was a very questionable pick. Like, why? Why would this be a 5-star prediction? It was not, in fact, a 5, okay? It was a 3. It's so hard to rate this because I think the art is beautiful. The only reason that I loved it is because it represents something that I have enjoyed. If I was just reading this on its own without the history of the novels in my back pocket, I would not have enjoyed it. I wouldn't have looked at it and thought, oh my God, this is so beautiful and stunning. But like the art style I can recognize is lovely. And I did really enjoy seeing all of the things that have just been in my imagination and with Maggie Stiefvater's description for so many years. But for one, the characters just had barely any emotion on their faces. So I think that the snide remarks and the eye contact and the little like side things, they just didn't come across the way that they do in the novel. And because it's pure dialogue and there isn't like narrative, there isn't exposition, we're lacking description of how the story exists. And I don't think that it was the best that an adaptation could have been because it was too true to the original story and didn't leave any room for any creativity from the people adapting it. And therefore, because it stuck so closely to the story and only told us in dialogue what was happening, we needed extra moments and extra scenes and explanations and conversations that maybe the novels didn't have, but that would make the graphic novel more successful. It was missing like the tone because we weren't getting explanations about how characters were feeling when they were saying certain things. We were just getting like occasionally a blank expression when they were saying something funny. And it was missing the heaviness of certain conversations because I don't think you did get a good idea of these characters' backstory and connection. And I don't think you got a good idea of the socioeconomic diversity in the group, and like why people were connecting the way that they were and how people felt about each other. I could talk about this for so long. I already have like an hour-long spoiler filled like a live reading of this with my channel. I wasn't reading it to them, but I was reading it to myself, and people were reading it with me, and every once in a while we would check in and see like how we were feeling about everything. It's so hard because I was enjoying myself seeing all of these things, but I just don't think that the story existed properly to be enjoyed in this medium.
I might regret this one, but I just have a feeling that Hot Wax by Emerald Rio is going to be a 5. If We Are Villains is one of my favorite books. I think about it often. I'm scared to ever reread it. I think I should, but I can't. And I recently read Graveyard Shift, gave it a 3, hovering 2.75. I think it wasn't a fully formed book, and that made me really disappointed because there was so much potential. And the fact that we're finally getting a whole novel.
Okay, so this is the first time I'm talking about Hot Wax because I haven't done a wrap up this month. I didn't vlog it. I just read it this week. If we had picked this for the Literally Dead book club, because the expectations are that this is a mystery, suspense, thriller kind of book, we would all be saying in the live show, that was just fiction. Like, that was general fiction. This does not fit the genres that we thought it did. And I don't think it's wrong for doing that, and that's not why I disliked it. I just didn't love it because it was boring. Like, there were different timelines. We were going back and forth between this woman that I'm sure I'm about to talk about in a second. She was on the road with her father and his band when she was younger, and we're flashing back to those scenes. And every single one of those scenes is just exactly as you anticipate. Like, if you were given this prompt, write a novel about a child who's on the road with her father's band, and what scenes would you think were in it? All of the scenes that were in it are ones that you would probably imagine. Like, there's just that, you know, there's a scene where she goes up to the band and she's like, you know, the little 11-year-old, and they're all like, oh, this kid's here again. She's like, hey guys, can I have a Coke? And they all like smile at each other, and they're like, ha, because they're all actually doing Coke, and they're pretending like this child is asking for cocaine, but she actually wants a Coca-Cola. How silly. And then we're getting a current day timeline where she is experiencing, there was something that led to a violent event in her past on the road, and now she's experiencing violence in a different way, and pressure from a partner. And in the synopsis, I don't think I even originally read this, but it talks about a man who is tracking her down. And I thought that must have been like the thriller vibes. It was not thriller. It was just like this sad man who his wife left, and we don't really understand him or her, and so we don't understand, like, do we want him to find her? Like, it just doesn't have the thrilling energy. It's just, and then we slowly get a realistic vision of what their marriage was and why she left and why he's trying to find her, and it just like gave nothing.
It might have some road trip vibes, and it might have some conversations about fame. So this one, you might tell me, should not be on my list. It's set in the 90s. Love that. It's got rock and roll. Love that. It follows a band of rocker misfits who could have catapulted into fame but didn't.
I will say that yes, it had road trip vibes and it had fame vibes, but the things that I don't like about both of those things in books were not present in this one, so that has nothing to do with it.
I don't know if this is like a mystery, a thriller, or horror. I don't really get the vibes, but I'm gonna read it and I'm gonna give it a 5.
No, you're not. And it's funny because even if you would say, or I would tell myself, now, like, that's not the type of book you typically like, you shouldn't have read it, there are actually some books in this vein about people being catapulted into fame, being a part of music and stuff that I have actually liked this year, like Deep Cuts. The favorites is sports, but I really liked this one that has to do with the drama and competition and pressure that comes along with having like a public facing career. But those ones are so much more about the messy dynamics between like two specific individuals the entire time that makes them feel more in the romance realm, and Hot Wax is not that. It took me 5 days to read this book. It put me in a reading slump that I'm still trying to dig my way out of right now. And I absolutely, without a doubt, would have DNF'd it if not for the inclusion in this video and me wanting to be able to respond and actually give a rating at the end. So this was my most incorrect 5-star prediction so far.
Number 9 feels a little uninformed because I've never read from this author, but I know so many people have a lot of appreciation for his work. And this one comes out in February. It's called One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This by Omar El Akkad. And it's just about the idea that many people, and especially Western society, like to think that they would take a stand against genocide, that the genocide in our history books is inconceivable, and like, how did anybody let that happen? And that could never happen now. But it is. It's happening right now. It's been happening, and people are turning a blind eye to it.
And this was a 5. This was everything that I hoped it to be. It was not so much an education. And because I guess this is my opportunity to recommend it again. I've recommended it in like probably a vlog and a wrap up. And in this moment, I just want to let you know it's not a history. It's not an explanation of the political relationships and the genocide in Gaza and Palestine's history. I wouldn't pick this up as your entry point. What it is essays and critiques of media especially, and the way that they have a lack of integrity and how they're allowed to like be censored in a certain way and sanitize reality. And it's written by a journalist. It's written by somebody who has worked for a very long time in media. He was born in Egypt, and it's just as much a memoir where you do gain knowledge and understanding, but it is a lot about him just navigating his own relationship and feeding that to us and giving us a perspective to look at the world through that is difficult. I imagine would be difficult for a lot of people to recognize that even if you share views with him, you may have lived a certain lifestyle that doesn't necessarily align with all of the values that you think you're upholding. And I just really think that this is so valuable for so many people. It's pretty short and it's extremely well written. And I think it was just fantastic, and it is a 5. I knew it would be a 5, and I'm so glad it was a 5. I knew all of these would be 5s, but alas, we are 2 for 9 in this moment.
This author offers a path from, this reviewer said, a path from collective grief to collective action. And finally, oh gosh, see, like is the Riley Sager coming out a 5-star prediction of mine? Is the Victoria Schwab? Is the Vaishnavi Patel? The Rory Power, the Kate Folk, the Ashley Winstead, Julia Bart, Stephen Green Jones, Alcott?
Now I'm just listing a bunch of books that might have been on the list. Okay, with a Vengeance, I gave that a 4. I haven't read Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil, The 10 Incarnations of Rebellion, or Kill Creatures. Thank you. Sky Daddy, I gave a 4. DNF'd This Book Will Bury Me. I gave 3 stars to The Last Session. I gave 4 stars to Buffalo Hunter Hunter, 3 stars to Finley Donovan, 4 stars to Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. So even in my not actually 5-star predictions, I didn't end up with a 5. This is hurting my feelings.
Are all of these 5-star predictions for me? No. Do I want to read them? Absolutely. I think I actually have to pick something that is a wild card.
Oh, I just remembered what I picked.
Because it is often that books that aren't on my most anticipated lists are my favorites.
Right. Not this time.
We're going to say The Baby Dragon Cafe by A.T. Qureshi is a 5-star prediction.
Sure.
After all the comments asking me to read dragon books and make a dragon vlog, and my reluctance to do so, I think I'm going to do it. With dragon books, you might not want me to read or prioritize, and I'm going to fall in love with some of them and give this a 5. It is about a coffee shop where the dragons roast the coffee. Dragon roasted coffee. How cute is that? We have Saphira, who runs the cafe, and then there's Aiden, who's a local gardener, and his baby dragon is causing him trouble, and so he's going to hire her.
So quirky and cute. This book was poorly written. Like, it was really not written well. I'm so sorry. As much as I didn't want to read a dragon book to begin with, right? I didn't learn anything about dragons. There was like no information about the dragons. It was just there were different breeds of the dragons, in which case you could just replace the word dragon with dog and the entire book would exist the same. Like, we didn't get to know the dragons. The dragons weren't really characters. They weren't like sidekicks. They weren't cute. They just kind of existed. They didn't add to the plot in any way. And considering like it's a baby dragon cafe, it's supposed to be about the baby dragons, but it was about this relationship. It was about the business, her growing the business, and I love reading about business stuff, so I appreciated that. And that's pretty much all I liked about it. I gave it a 2. Neither of the characters were likable in any way or relatable, like in a way that made it interesting to read. They just existed. They were just cardboard cutouts of people. Like, do you want to help me? No, I don't. It was like, felt like playing with Barbies. Like what a 7-year-old would make her Barbie say to each other. You help me with my dragon? Okay, here's my dragon. No, you have to come spend the day with me. The setup was fun. The concept was interesting, and it all just fell apart Like there was nothing actually driving the plot. Very simplistic writing, very simple scenes. Not only were the characters independently like not the most interesting, but their dynamic I did not enjoy. I didn't want them to be together, and this is a romance. A sub 300 page book, and the first 100 pages was just the synopsis. Like everything you already learned on the back of the book took 100 pages to explain that, and then it was like, okay, here goes the plot. Just kidding. Let me figure out what my average rating was from all of these, because my average rating prediction should be 5. 5 stars, 10 books, 5 stars all around. My actual numbers, a 3.7. You know, that's not actually crazy. I guess there were some high 4s at the beginning. I need to remember that. In total, there were 2 5 stars. So I was correct 20% of the time. I had 2 4 somethings. So just a little bit wrong. I had 2 solid 4s. I had 2 that were in the 3s. And I had 2 that were in the 2s. And I feel like that's reasonable for books in general. Like if you only pick up books you think are going to be 5s, which I do think the majority of readers do, like you're only reading things that you want to be reading, I think that is a normal split to have. 60% wins and 40%, I don't want to call them losses because a 3.5 is not a loss, but like we're getting kind of far away from a 5. I think this is fine. I think this is normal. For me, listing these as being 5-star predictions seems a little bit crazy. And I guess that means I'm never allowed to do this again. But will I? Probably. I love you as a friend. Let me know your current 5-star prediction, the next book that you think you're going to read and give 5 stars. And then a year from now, we will come back to this video and we'll see if you were right. I will remind you to come back. Okay, bye.